My name is Michael Kabi, a doctorate candidate of California Intercontinental University. Uh, we're here to discuss Porter's competitive strategy. Now, our conversation points will cover an overview of Porter's four competitive strategies. Then we'll give examples what the corporate competitive strategies that Porter's put forward. And then we'll look at the usefulness of this as an analytical tool for strategy development. And then look at alternatives, the perspectives to alternatives on this. The whole idea of competitive strategy is to be able to, for a company to have a position in the market that makes it the leader, be able to make the sale, takes it away from the competition in such a way that they are dominant in that particular market. Now, the views that Porter brought that is leading in this respect is the definition of the market in such a way that we have broad definitions, which is what is the source of competitive advantage against the scope, which is, are you playing in a narrow market, you're playing in the whole market. If you're playing in the whole market, there is two options available for you. One is to be a cost leader and then be a differentiating leader. If you're playing in a narrow market, there are two options also available for you. One is you play in a niche market, but you're all focused on cost. And then if you're playing in the niche market and you want to also use differentiation, you also play in the niche market with differentiation. To understand these four broad perspectives or strategies, for cost leadership, the objective is to minimize as much cost as is possible in such a way that you're a cost leader. Nobody can go beyond your cost. In other words, no, market can be defined, and you want to be a leader in that respect. The other, in the broad market sense, you also want to, other options is for you to be a differentiator. You use differentiation as the market development or strategy. Now, in that instance, you make different and unique products and services. In other words, you have certain competitive advantage will make you a differentiator in the market. So that also is a strategy to follow. Now, in the narrow market, you may choose, now when that's a niche market, you may choose to be a cost, focused on cost. The other one is a differentiator. You want to differentiate. You are in a niche market, but at the same time, you want to differentiate. Just to give you examples of the companies in these four categories, we would start with Walmart, which actually is has demonstrated cost leadership in its particular market, which is retail. Now, the enablers that made them cost leaders is competitive compensation. They pay competitive prices for their workers. They have a supply chain system that is, more, called docking system that is just in time, that makes them, the throughput through the office, through their shops is very fast. They leverage technology and standardize their practices both in terms of the what their shops looks like and how the throughput goes through. They are all very standardized, and that makes them cost leader. Very difficult to break them on cost. An example of differentiation competitive strategy is Starbucks. Their competitive differentiating strategy is anchored on superior customer service, employee stock ownership. In other words, get employees involved in order to drive down their commitment, especially on the customer service front. Unique ambience and then quality coffee, premium coffee, which they provide to the. An example of focused differentiation is Rolls-Royce. Rolls-Royce, competes on the basis of luxury cars at premium prices with excellent features and position their products as can't live without gadgets. It is in a niche market, but it's a differentiation as the basis, not cost. So that provides an example for niche market and differentiation strategy. As an example of a company that is focused and cost in a niche market is Home Depot. Home Depot competes on the basis of cost in a niche market. They have the do-it-yourself home ownership products, and then a professional, they sell wholesale and have generic products. So they are focused on a niche market, and at the same time, they focus on cost to be able to prevent people from coming into their uncontested space. So that is their strategy. The usefulness of the portal's four strategies for analyzing companies has been very useful in the sense that there are two critical concepts that come to mind. One is competitive choice selection. Has helped companies to frame the market, their core strengths, to be able to develop what is it that they can do very well, and then emphasize specific specialization. That depends on the standing of a particular market, matching your internal strengths and strengths to the particular market. That helps out. It helps to also analyze the market very well, and that has also helped to develop what needs to companies to do. It's been even extended to the value discipline part, which has to do with operational excellence, product leadership, and at the same time customer intimacy. These have helped to focus on markets and grow companies. Now, there are drawbacks and limitations, one of which is that the strategic specialization is seen as rigid and inflexible. And the concept of stock in the middle is really unrealistic when one takes into the market space. In other words, these are static models with opportunities to make them dynamic going forward. A study was done that clearly shows for Caterpillar in 1992 that shows that Caterpillar was producing highest quality earth-moving equipment and at the same time concentrated on cost efficiency, making premium profits. That demonstrated that you can be stuck in the middle pursuing two strategies at the same, both cost and differentiation. Now, Blue Ocean also created a uncontested space concept, which has helped to emphasize the fact that you can pursue both differentiation and simultaneously low-cost strategy. Now, if we want to discuss alternative methods to improve the limitations of portals for competitive strategy or generic strategies, I would start first with portals' own extension of the conversation to include the external environment, which is industry force that impacts the company. Marrying the generic competitive strategy, which basically focuses on internal capacities, and external, will marry them together. It provides a framework that, at least at the cross-section level, helps the company to develop a strategy that is very powerful. One alternative that we'll also look at is what I had spoken to before, which has to do with the Blue Ocean strategy, which is that the context and the market are not given. That companies can reconstruct to create a uncontested spaces for them to, work with. And it means that you can do both differentiation and cost, strategy at the same time. That provides a framework for developing strategy. The other one I like to talk about has to do with, if we want to look at alternative methods that could be helpful in analysis, we should be looking at dynamic models like evolutionary change and hyper competition. Change is the only striking feature of contemporary business and successful firms. We'll be able to deal effectively with change, not simply those that are good in planning. The future belongs to the bold, those who are able to change the landscape and be able to adapt to those landscape, like it is in nature, And so the concept of evolutionary change, has come up, which is that there's almost chaos out there. You need to be changing, you need to be agile, and don't take one cross-section analysis as the only basis for, developing strategy. The other one that was provided by Professor Diavano is the hyper-competition concept. Now, this speaks to almost the same, but from the perspective that the competitive advantage that is today will be eroded tomorrow. So the tenor of competitive advantage is very short. In other words, competitive advantage is there, and so it should be evolutionary and dynamic. So you need to change. He proved the framework of the 7S, but there are three critical elements in it: vision for how to disrupt a market, You need to set your goals, build core competencies necessary to keep specific disruptions. Then hone your skills, to be able to deliver on that, and then be able to have disruptive tactics to be able to go over it. In order to conclude this conversation, we would like to emphasize that the Porter's generic competitive strategy is groundbreaking and provided enough examples for companies to succeed and continue to succeed as we speak today. However, there are limitations basically based on the strategic focus and then uncontested spaces. I mean, so it's important that they are rigid and inflexible. So we look at what are the opportunities for improvement. We'll start with Porter's incorporation of his own generic and 5 forces. It helps to integrate and create a platform for analysis for any company, and so it's good for that. But we can also look at alternatives, the blue ocean strategy, the evolution, and hyper competition as a basis to integrate the dynamic models into the static models that has been provided. So thank you for the opportunity.